Oh, it's Denise from Women Beyond a Certain Age. We have a very special guest today, Chef Michael, I can say Kalanty. That's how he
Perfect.
tells people to say it because, of course, it's the hard A, the longer A. I think I was taught, when I was taught, what did we know? The alphabet had just been formed. Anyway, had just been written. Oh, Michael.
Denise, hello. Thank you so much for welcoming me today. It's been really so long since we've had a chance to chat, and it's great to catch up. Thank you.
It's great to catch up. Now, we're going to start, and here's where we're starting. Sometimes I give these lengthy introductions, Michael, and I know that people are like snoring by the time my guest gets on. So I want to start with this. You and I met at the CCA, right?
That's correct. Correct.
Okay. I had come back as an adjunct instructor in like 93.
Okay.
You were there. When did you start at the CCA? What year?
So I came in the very next year in 94 from Philadelphia. I came in, and they had brought me in to write a baking and pastry program for them.
Okay.
So I did that. And then they said, well, maybe we should make you the executive director. So that was my next job. I was the executive chef for a while, and then they said, no, executive director for you, put you in charge of everything. So that's a very short way of saying what happened to me once I landed at CCA.
Now, let me tell you, it's you know what, my here's how I feel about the CCA. I'm so grateful I went. Had
Yes.
I not gone, I could never have had the career that I've had, and I mean that from just the confidence it gave me. That, and however it ended, as things do, businesses don't always last. Do you know what I mean? My
Yes.
feeling is the intentions in the most of the CCA's history was to do good and to produce great, students. So that's how I like to remember it.
I agree with you with my soul on that one, Denise, and thank you for wording it that way, because having worked on the administrative side, I got to see, as they say, how the sausage is made, and you don't ever want to see that. You just want to grill it up and eat it.
Oh my God. This was my thing, because I graduated in 84. So I got back there in 93. And the reason why, Michael, was I was building out a new catering kitchen in Los Angeles. And it was, of course, falling behind. And we couldn't really legally cater, do you know what I mean, without our kitchen and blah, blah. So I scrounged around, and it was probably Dan Bow who said, come up here and teach 1 or 2 weeks out of the yes.
Oh, gosh.
Who we text each other all the time. Because we're gossips. And I got a job, and it's same thing at the CCI. I started teaching 1 week out of the month, and my family's still in San Francisco. So it was wonderful. And then the kitchen's falling behind. I started teaching 2 weeks out of the month. But it was great, Michael. I got to see some of the good changes that had happened at the CCA. And I got to see that there had been a flourish of women that were now graduating. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
And it gave me, and I had just written a book on catering, and I sold a ton of catering books because all the kids in my class bought my book. So again, the most positive experience for me at the CCA. I'm extremely grateful.
Well, and in fact, I remember when your book came out, and you were set up on a little folding card table in the main lobby up these grand marble steps, this little fold out, mahjong coffee table, and you were selling your books. And I couldn't even get near you. There were so many people like, oh, sign this, sign that, and everything. And I was and I think that's when you really like registered, because there were so many chefs. There were like over 150 chefs there at that time. And I remember just thinking like, oh, I have to get to know her because she has something special going on. And
Oh,
and that was that moment. So thanks for I had forgotten about that.
I'd
So
forgotten about that too. All I know is I did sell a ton of books because of the CCA,
yes,
and I'm very grateful.
yes.
This is what's frightening too. I still get royalty checks from that book. It's my very first. I know. Now, I'm not going to retire. I couldn't retire on them, but I get a little check in the mail. And I wrote that book in 93. And I think this is amazing. Okay. Enough about me. Now, so you came from Philadelphia. How did you learn to be a master baker? Michael, did you learn from the streets? Did your parents bake?
I learned from the street. Yeah, I learned from the street. That's very funny.
Well, because
no, I know what you mean. I know what you mean. As opposed to a formal training and stuff like that. Yes.
When you meet taco chefs today and stuff, I mean, they learned on the streets,
That's and really, I'll tell you, of all the, I mean, I've always been a teacher, Denise. I've always been a teacher, and I've taught everything from YMCA summer camp to college art history courses. I've taught everything in between and everything, and I'll tell you, and the reason that I stuck most with the CCA and teaching culinary is that it was I don't want to say it was vocational, but it was like these were talented, interested, smart people that wanted to learn something, but didn't necessarily feel comfortable sitting and learning in a traditional classroom, etc. And a lot of times the students, they didn't have the opportunity to go to even a community college or something like that. It was like, get a trade. And that demographic of people, it's just like that. To me, that's where I get the most return on the money. It's like, okay, I'm going to teach this, and then the kids take it, and next thing you know, they've got their own catering businesses, and they've got their bakeries, and they go, hey, Chef Mike, thanks a lot. And I'm like, hey, so that was the sweet niche for me. That's where, as Laurie Grenier says it.
And what's interesting, Michael, and I'm sure you'll agree, when I had to teach the catering class, most of the guys that were, because it was by the time I got there in 93, now I had half girls, half boys in my classes. Do you know what I mean? No longer just 3 girls out of 50 guys. But all of them were going to be restaurant chefs. And they would say things to me like, well, Denise, Chef Denise, thanks for your class, but I'm never going to cater. And I used to say to them, sweetie, yes, you are.
Yes, you are.
There isn't a chef on this planet that doesn't find themselves one day standing in the middle
In fact, next week you're going to be catering.
Yes. You'll never get stuck in catering. You have no idea. And so I agree with you. And there's always been, to me, I love, Michael, that you think of yourself as a teacher first, because because that's who you help.
But you know what, Denise? It really is a question for me of, you can be a famous chef, you cannot be a famous chef, you can do that, you can do that, but you like, what is the legacy that you're going to leave behind? And for me, and it's especially for me, like when I come back to Philadelphia, where I started teaching, and I can talk more about that. And I come back now, and the biggest restaurants in Philadelphia, the chefs were students of mine, like years ago.
Yes.
And I go in, and they're like, "Oh, hail the chief," and I'm like, "Be quiet, don't I?" It's like, you're the chief. You're the one that's running all this stuff. I just showed you like which end of the knife to hold, and and that to me is that just made everything worth it, and makes everything worth it. So
I so agree. It's a hopefully you throw those pebbles into the the lake, and
into whatever, yeah.
they do all sorts of things, and some of them you find out have gone on to bigger and better things. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
When once in a while I get texts from some sweet student, something the same thing, or they'll say you were inspirational. I always say the same thing. I want you to aim higher. Okay. I want you to aim higher than me. Please trust me. Now,
that's great. I'm going to steal that. I'm stealing it. I'm stealing it.
Free. Aim higher than me. That's all I can say. Now,
can I jump in? Can I jump in?
Please.
I would tell students all the time. I would say, when they would say, "Oh, we want to be like you. I want to do this, and how'd you learn to do that?" And I would do air quotes, and I say, being a baker, I said, I'm not your role model, like a Kaiser roll. And once at graduation, they gave me a chef coat, a group of students, and for your name, they said, "Not your role model."
Oh, how cute! Oh, how cute! Oh, that's wonderful.
So anyway, but I like aim higher. I like that. It's shorter.
It's yours. Now, we need to talk about, so after you left the CCA and different things, and this is what's important, and Michael, a lot of our audience, regardless of their age group, face this question. So you basically, if you didn't go to work in a bakery, working all night for somebody else, you created your own career by teaching R&D, by writing your own books. I mean, so you built your own career.
Yes, I didn't realize it at the time.
Of course not.
Yes, but that's exactly, in retrospect. Yes, that is what happened.
See, and this to me, and this is always, and we have similar themes, and it's probably because that's what I'm interested in.
Mm-hmm.
Similar themes in the people that we interview on Women Beyond a Certain Age, where people, male or female, but they decide that they're in charge of their own career. Do you know what I mean? And it's a very big deal.
Okay.
It's a very big deal. And this is how I always equate it. I had been, same thing, I taught at the CCA, but then I got, I had a catering business when I wanted to get out of catering because I was just tired. And I kind of felt like I'd done everything I wanted to. I said, I'm going to be able to sell my food styling services and consulting services, and I'm going to build that career. I had just married my husband by then. And he said to me, "So that's how you're going to replace the $100,000 a year that you get out of your catering company?" And at the moment I thought, oh, because I never even looked. You know what I mean? Really, that wasn't why I was catering. I knew it paid me pretty well, but I don't do my own taxes. And when he said that to me, I thought,
no, chefs don't do taxes.
Oh, shit. That sounds like a lot of money. So starting, to all of a sudden say, "Oh, no, we're not going to do this," and move into something else. Ignorance is bliss, as I always say.
Yes.
Didn't know any better. And I just assumed that I could do it. It took a long time. It took a long time, Michael, to make that same kind of money again. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
I kind of threw caution to the wind. And also my husband was paying the rent at that moment. So that's probably why I was a little more cavalier. But it's not an easy thing to do, to start. I always think the same thing, ground zero, and all of a sudden you build a career. It may take 10 years, it may take 15 years, but it's yours.
Yes.
That's pretty phenomenal.
That's great. So that's okay. So that it's so nice to hear that from a colleague.
Yes.
And innately I knew that, because I know that about every colleague of a certain age who has their own business and supports themselves in some way or whatever. And when you fill out your income tax, there's no code for what it is that you do, so you just have to put six nines in a row other, because no one does what we do in the way that we do it. And so it's very personal. It's so personal. And so as you were talking, I was thinking about, I have some notes here, and I was like, okay, well, that helps me frame the stuff I wanted to talk about today, and my story. And I think my career per se actually happened after the CCA was sold, and then it became the Cordon Bleu, and then the Cordon Bleu slowly was disbanding all of their schools in North America. And, because enrollment in cooking schools has really declined over the past, 2 decades.
Yes.
And that's really where I started building my own career. But before I talk about that, real quick, I just want to lead you through how I even got into cooking in the first place.
Absolutely.
And I think the guiding principle is, I'm going to do what I want to do, because that, no matter what, I don't even know how it will support me. I don't know, but I know that if I like what I'm doing, then I will be better at it and do it more, deliberately and consistently, and all that kind of stuff.
Wow.
And so when I was in undergrad, I was a mathematics major, and that came about only because the math classes were offered at 8:00 in the morning, and I liked getting up, and I would go. And for some reason, and I'm not bragging or whatever, but for some reason, math just makes sense to me. It just makes sense. And see, and so that's why I'm a baker. So, and I would sit there, and and I would just I would take notes, and this was all like higher level stuff, theoretical and integrals, and stuff I don't even remember.
Yeah.
But it made sense to me. It was easy to get A's and all of these things. And I said, okay, well, this is going to be my baseline. And then I started taking other courses. And I took courses in literature and language and art, and just all of these things, just because, I wanted to do it.
Yes.
And Bill's like, what are you going to do when you get out? I said, I don't know, something with math, probably. I don't know. Let me finish this. So then I went to graduate school, and I studied architecture. Now that made sense. You take math, you have an applied science, you can be an architect and Ayn Rand, and you can build things and all of that stuff. So that took me to France to write my thesis. And I wrote my thesis on the flying buttress structures that hold up all those Gothic cathedrals like Chartres and Amiens and Reims and Notre Dame. And next to every cathedral in every single town in France, there's a boulangerie. It's just right next door. I mean, I think they made, the communion wafers, back in the Middle Ages, right? Sure. I mean, I know in Italy, that's how they did it. So I got distracted by these aromas and all that stuff. And I just fell in love with bakery. I just fell in love with it. And I came back, I finished my thesis and all that stuff, and then went back to France and got a apprenticeship position with one of the bakers that I had become friends with while I was there. And that's what got me in to baking, that whole thing of finding what you want. So that was, that was like caution to the wind. That was
But that's amazing. Do you know what? See, and that's amazing. And you know what, Michael, I think and it's also, you followed what you want, what you fell in love with. When people say things to me about cooking, one, I found out I was good at it. Do you know what I mean? At first, I was just
Yes.
unconfident and I was scared.
Right.
And I had never
Yeah, you have
worked.
to be good at it. Yeah.
Yeah. I found out I was really good at running kitchens, that it was exactly like running a nursery school. Do you know what I mean? That Johnny needs a nap, Pedro needs a nap, Jose needs to stop drinking during the day. I mean, I learned.
Right. Spill in aisle 4.
That's right. Clean up. But people say, oh, but what did you do beforehand? I never finished one thing in my whole life before culinary school. I went to college. I went to several colleges. I did this. I never did any. I mean, I sold real estate because my father was the broker, but I never really finished anything until I found cooking. Do you know what I mean? And then, so we meander our way through life, and then we find things, if we're lucky.
If we're lucky, and I was just really, really fortunate that I was allowed and able and had the wherewithal to do those things. I just, and I thank my family so much for all the support that they gave me through that. But, I was very fortunate in that regard. So
tell us this. I know about your very first cookbook, your first baking book, Michael, because you sent me a copy of it. And I need people to know, because I'm not a baker. Now, I can follow a recipe. Do you know what I mean? But it's not as instinctive to me. Though in reality, what happens is, as a food stylist, you end up making every single kind of food in the world, because
yes, you do. Yes, you do.
I mean, whether you want to or not, you end up.
You need to make it the way you envision it being. So you have to do it. Yes.
So I actually, and Cindy, of course, Cindy's grandmother sold pies on Venice Boulevard into local.
Oh my God, Mildred Pierce.
So Cindy has pie, as I always say to her, Cindy has pie genes. So whenever Cindy has incredible baking skills, she wouldn't even say that about herself, but she really does. Now, when you sent me your first book, and please say the name of it.
Well, it's called How to Bake Bread, and the subtitle is The 5 Families of Bread.
See, this is, yeah.
I'm from Jersey, so you grow up with the Sopranos, and so the idea of a family made a lot of sense. But that's the subtitle of it. But it's called How to Bake Bread.
Yeah, and you know what? I love the 5 families part, though. I love that. Your book, you graciously sent me one, and of course I glanced through it and I looked at it because I was very impressed. But the funny part about it was, I stuck it on my bookshelf in our little test kitchen, and a young man who worked with us sometimes part-time, who now lives in New York, who's a great food stylist, saw your bread book, said, "Can I borrow this?" I said, "Sure." The next day came in and said, "This is the best bread book I've ever seen." And if I remember correctly, I never got it back. So he just blatantly stole the book, and that he baked a lot. So I'm sure he got more out of it than I would have, only because I'm ADD, I'm ADHD. I learn what I have to at the moment, and then I move on. You know what I mean? That's always been who I am. So that book. Now, did you self-publish that book, Michael, or did you?
What? I did.
That's what I thought.
I did self-publish that book, and that was an education all by itself. Really, I would highly recommend anybody who ever even thinks that they want to maybe self-publish a book. Just because of the personal growth that you go through and the things that you have to encounter and how they affect you and the choices that you have to make to get through these situations. It was a most educational experience about who I am and what makes me work. It was really, yes, I recommend it. Even if you don't even sell any, just I recommend doing it.
no, I have to tell you, that's something, Michael. People, I know you have this too. Students, friends, colleagues say, "Oh, I want to write a cookbook," or "I want to," and this. Well, publishing has changed greatly. People see in the newspaper somebody who gets one big advance, so they all think they're going to get, $700,000, and then
Stephen King.
Thank you. Then they find out that, in fact, something like in San Francisco, Chronicle's going to give you, if you're lucky, $10,000. Do you know what I mean?
Oh my!
Yeah, and
I'm going to call them up. That's more than I've ever gotten.
I know. And then sometimes you find out that you sign this contract, and when you talk about personal growth, even though an attorney read it, even though you thought you understood it, when you get that, when the push comes to shove, you didn't know what you were getting yourself into.
Right. You're like, what? I have to do what? I have to take pictures of things? What?
Yes. That's in this day and age now, even 10 years ago, Cindy and I probably worked on 3 or 4 cookbooks a year, and got paid very well. And the client was sometimes not even at the shoot. Do you know what I mean? We just sent them through email, and they would approve things. And now it happens to me constantly. We get emails from people saying, Denise, I signed for my first cookbook. I have to produce all the artwork. And I say to them,
exactly.
And I'm trying to be nice. I go, did you get a big advance? They go, no, I didn't. And I said, well,
no, they bought me a pen and ink set.
And you may not be able to afford the yellow pads by the time you finish paying for the artwork. I know. It's a cruel twist of fate. Now, the big news, and this is what I want people to understand, Michael. So, and then
you know what? I just have to have a shout out, because, it's like everything. It takes a village, and I have to give a shout out. And very likely he'll never hear about this, but the guy's name is Jake Metzger, and he was a student of mine. And when it came time for me to have photographs for my book, and I realized, when I see your books on food styling, I'm like, when I food style bread, I'm like, I put a slice of bread, and then I say, okay, here's butter, and that's to me, that's like food styling. And so I couldn't make beautiful pictures. I just couldn't do it, because it's not. And he said, well, we can do your pictures like a very instructional kind of thing, very basic, black and white, blah blah blah. And it reminded me of the very first cookbook I ever had, Jacques Pepin's La Technique, and he had these black and white photos that, I don't know, it must have been from the daguerreotype machine in 1890. They were so just such poor quality, but you could see exactly what he was doing. Here's how he boned the fish. Here's how he did that. And I thought, that's the kind of format I want in my book, so people can look at the picture and then maybe read what I wrote or not. It's like you can learn from the picture. He said, I can take those pictures for you. And I'm like, okay, that's great. And I'm like, okay, but then you always have to vet the people and say, what are you gonna come in with your cell phone? They didn't have cell phones then, but he goes, well, no, I used to work with my dad, and he is the head of photography for National Geographic. And I was like, oh, okay, you're in, dude.
How? No. Now, Michael, you bring up another point besides the point of your story. See, along the way, there are people that help you. That's all.
Yes.
And people say to me sometimes, oh, but Denise, you work so hard. I said, I was also extremely lucky. People sometimes out of nowhere say, oh, I love that story you write. Or Denise, that was wonderful. I mean,
yes.
People, the throwaway line that I'll never forget, big luncheon, I'm with Julia Child, we're at ICP. I sit down next to this very unimposing, lovely woman. And she said to me, oh, your stories are marvelous. Do you write? And I said, well, I've written a catering book. I'm sitting with people that've got 30 cookbooks. I feel like now.
Right, and James Beard Awards
I
and,
just,
Nobel Prizes. Yeah.
I feel like a total moron. Matter of fact, I hadn't wanted to sit at that table, but of course, Julia insisted. And when Julia tells you to do something, you do it. And she told me, well, one day I see you'll write a memoir. Just put all your stories together. And then when we were leaving, she said, oh, by the way, here's my card. And it was Judith Jones.
Oh my God.
I know.
Now, oh my God.
Of my career. I never thought of it again until I found her card. But you know what? Walking away, I remember thinking, that woman thinks my stories would be interesting. So you know what? I didn't have to act on it then. But there was a wonderful feeling to have someone like that, or Irina Chalmers. I had Anne Willen. I had these women, these powers.
Those are strong names from an earlier age. Yes.
Tell me that they saw success in me, and you know what? It helped me.
Yes. Yes.
And your friend reached out to you and helped you.
Yes. And really, there's so many people that have helped me in my life that are coming through. And I think that is really what is one of my driving things today, is that when I come across somebody that I see has talent and a good work ethic and applies him or herself and all of that, I go out of my way to make sure that they know that they're recognized. And I can't help you. I don't even know anything about what it is that you're doing. But if I can ever help you or just whatever, here, take my number. And I think that it's just really important, because I wouldn't be where I am now if people had not helped me. I would not. I just would not. So
now I want people to know about your new video series that you have. I know that so you have to tell us about it. And I want listeners to know, because this one's going to be a long one. Sometimes we stop and do two, but I'll tell you something, Michael, this one's going to be a long one. And we say to people, we do them at different lengths, a podcast at different lengths, and people seem to listen to the long ones. People listen to the short ones. So it all works out for us. I want to tell the listeners now that you have been gracious enough that when we broadcast your podcast, that you have given us a coupon for a discount on your video series.
Oh, well, it's thank you. And thank you for sharing your platform with me to bring this to the public, because it's really, it's great. Thank you. I appreciate that. And yes, I was able to talk to the distributors, and they say, and I was like, they want you to just promote. And I go, well, listen, I just, give these people a break. So, so let's go. So, but yes, thank you.
How did it start? How did it start, the video series?
So this is okay. So this is not a whole video series. This is a one-off.
Okay.
A video. It's a one-off video, and
but you're going to do.
See.
I bet you're going to do more, aren't you?
Well, okay. So here's the thing. I started doing videos about maybe 7 or 8 or 9 years ago. It didn't seem that long, but I gotta add in for COVID with Craftsy. Craftsy.com.
Absolutely.
And I got a call. I got a call one day, and from somebody who was on set, and they said, you know what? We had a baker who we wanted to do this video, but he dropped out at the last minute, and maybe you'd want to pick up and and everything. And I was like, absolutely. I didn't even ask, what do I have to bake? I was like, I don't care. I'm there. and so so that put me in touch with the Crapsy platform,
Yes.
and what what a professional group they were. I had first of all, I had a handler, I had a producer, I had a script supervisor, I had a proofreader, I had a recipe tester, I had a director on set, I had a sound. I had like all of these people. I don't even know how they can make videos that that people can buy because they spend so much money doing these things. But they put me in touch, and so I did one on how to bake with whole grain breads.
Okay, I remember.
And that just that just was a big hit with the audience. And I don't think I know because I you read all the comments that the people write on the question and answer thing, and the thing that was most important or striking to the students was that I presented information in a very laddered kind of way. Like, here's some information, learn this, and now, okay, well, now that you know that, now we're going to put this on top, and now so it starts from a very basic platform that I imagine many people are already, comfortable with, but of course, new people are not. And so that was the big thing. And then they came back to me about a year later, and they said, you know what, we want you to do another one. And the second one was on, what was the second one on? I think it was on sourdough. No, it was not. Oh my God. It was the science. They wanted science of baking.
Ooh.
And I was like, well, I am not a scientist. I mean, the smallest and scariest thing I know is a molecule. So I can't get any smaller than that when I start talking to people. And they're like, no, you don't need to go down to glycemics and this. You don't need to do that. Just help people understand like how gluten works and everything. So they said, be like a Bill Nye science guy kind of thing. And I had a producer who was genius enough. I mean, he was like a Christopher Nolan of like making how-to videos.
Wow.
And in fact, he recently got a James Beard Award for one of his videos. And so I know. So and he was like, no, Michael, do whatever you want. You want to be crazy? Go ahead, be crazy. And I was like, oh, you don't have to tell me twice. And so that was a big hit. So I have I have those under my belt.
Yes.
And so there's so now to the new one. The new one is called Discovering Focaccia.
Love it.
And it is in conjunction with Central Milling, which is an organic milling operation with headquarters in Utah and the distribution point in Northern California. And they have an artisan baking center where I go and teach hands-on classes.
Beautiful. I mean, I saw just a little promo that you gave, and in the pictures that you sent, it's beautiful. The background
it's a stunning facility, and they built it so that they could bring in their big clients and work with their bakers with professional machinery and everything like that. So they're expanding their education market, and they approached me and they said, hey, would you write a video on focaccia? And I was like, absolutely, I absolutely will. So and they were like, okay, well, let's have one with tomatoes and cheese, and then like meats and this and that and all these things. And I'm like, okay, wait a minute. First of all, I'm the chef. I'm going to write what I want. If you don't like it, then we can go from there. But right. I'm the content expert. You are the video people. And I said, and first of all, focaccia does not have tens of thousands of things on it. It's this little flatbread, and people use it in different ways. So that's how I'm going to approach it. And they were skeptical, but but I came up with a system. I started in Liguria, where the traditional flatbread is, and there is a slow food presidium in Genoa, in Liguria, where there are a handful of bakers that have gotten together and they said, okay, we are going to only make the traditional focaccia, and we're going to use olive oil. We're not going to use lard. We're not going to use this. We're going to let it rise overnight and everything. So I thought, you know what? Let's explain this to students so they can know what it is. I mean, it's not something that you just say, oh yeah, I want the roast beef sub on focaccia and you get this thing, it's not what it is. So then, so we did that. And then I went down to La Puglia in the Boot. And down there, they make their focaccia with potatoes and semolina.
Oh.
And they make it in this deep dish pan in the wood-fired oven. And it bakes up to this tender, creamy inside with like this crunchy outside. It's like creme brulee for bread.
Wow.
And you plant like little baby tomatoes and olives in it, and that's all. And that's all you need. I mean, you get these things, and it is like so. So I approached it in that way, and then I ended up in the Chianti region, where they make this bread with grapes, with harvest grapes. And it's like a flatbread. They don't. It's not in a pan or anything. And they plunge all of these Chianti grapes inside and just drench it in sugar. And then they bake that. And when you eat that, this like olive oil bread fermented with the little pools of Chianti grape jelly. And oh my God, it's
okay.
So
I'm sold. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so we will give people.
Did I do it justice?
Oh my God, we will tell everyone, Michael, how they can access that and they get a discount. Now, here's the reason, and I think you're going to do more of them. I hope you do more in a series for them because you just.
Thank you.
No, seriously. You never know what's coming. We don't know what's coming in the future. Did I see TikTok is a vehicle for people to learn to cook? No. Now, are they learning to cook? I'm not sure, but a lot of people at least are interested in food. That, you know what I mean? Even if it's melting, if you are melting a brick of cream cheese and you throw some dried herbs in there and call it a pasta sauce, it's still better than going to the drive-in to meat. Do you know what I mean? As far as family, or your children seeing their mother or their dad making something. I think
making
that's
food. Yes.
Making that you don't just go into a store and you don't drive in your car and get something. So here's the reason why, and this is what I wanted to finish up with, but you'll come back and be our guest again because you're too interesting. During the pandemic. Now, here's the example.
Oh my God.
I never baked a loaf of bread. In school, of course, I had to. I had Bo and Chef Robert when I was at the CCA.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Now, I learned.
Top tier.
Yeah, I learned so much from both of them. I loved Chef Robert, kept in touch with Chef Robert when he went off to the CIA. But Chef Bo, was always a struggle. It was always a struggle. That's all I'm going to say. I won't say much because he died and we don't talk bad about the dead when we're Italian.
May he rest in peace. Yes. I have to tell you, I have his book. I think with age, the book has become too heavy for me to take off the shelf now. I have to put it down at the bottom where the stock pots are. But it continues to this day to be a resource for me. Yeah. When I have an R&D project in something, I go, okay, before I try to invent some like new Linzer tort with high protein flour or whatever, I'm going to see what Chef Bo said to do. And then I'm going to go from there.
You are absolutely correct.
And he is so often my first step. So
I
Yes.
agree. All right. So during the pandemic comes along. I have just retired.
Oh,
Oh yeah, we've moved into our new house. We sold both our houses. I closed my studio. Cindy's taking over. She's working. And my husband and I, in 30 years of our marriage, have never spent this much time together in our entire lives. And I remember thinking, wow. So,
who are you?
Yeah, really. Like, so,
really? You know how to do that?
Wow, I had no idea. You talk this much, right? I had no idea what a
No,
poor
it's great. It
poor
had a lot
listener
of
you
silver
are.
linings, that whole thing. Yeah.
I've started making sourdough like everyone else in America. I have course wonderful friends that were all chefs and personal chefs. So women sent me starter. Would get a little envelope. I said on Facebook, I'm going to learn to make some sourdough. I got some starters that were fantastic. I got starters not as fantastic. You know what I mean? A little weaker. I didn't know anything. But anyway, I killed one. There was a suicide with one starter. I mean, overnight, I killed starter. She was gone. And then, I just want to say this. I made little loaves of bread. They weren't big. The recipe was by that woman who's great. I think her name is Elaine Goody, something like that. She's written some bread books. It's simple. It's very simple.
Yes.
And I made some loaves, but they were delicious, not particularly good looking. I would send a picture to Jim Dodge and he'd say, oh, you know how sweet he is. He didn't want to say, whoa, what'd you do with that one, bitch? Anyway, he couldn't have been sweeter to me.
No, always support. Chefs always support.
I got better at it. But here's what I want to say, my moderate success. Why do you, as a professional, think that all of a sudden sourdough bread became the passion of the pandemic? I'm serious. Why?
It's at the very, what is it called? Is it Maslow's triangle or something like that? Where, at the very bottom is shelter and food. And then at the top is like creativity and self-actualization, or words that I don't even know. And the pandemic kind of really just leveled everybody down to that first level. And it's like, you know what? You got to sustain yourself on like the very basic level. You just have to do that, find a way to get your food, wash your food, do whatever you have to do, close the door, have a decontamination zone. I don't know, whatever level of mania that you subscribe to. And it's all good, because we're here, we made it through it.
Right.
And I think, and so like sourdough, it's like, so in many ways that made us be like cavemen. And so,
yes.
So sourdough is like, well, this is a very basic thing. This is a very basic thing. And it's made from like microbes. It's not made from anything we really need to buy and all of that stuff. And so I think that what it did is it offered a venue, an escape, a place to retreat, something that was intellectually stimulating, because you could deep dive on the internet and learn 10,000 conflicting things about what it even is. And it gave you physical activity.
Yes. And it took a while. And it takes a while.
So it gave you like, it helped you adjust to the fact that, okay, well, we don't have a timetable anymore, because,
right.
we're not going to work. We're not doing this. So it's like, what are you going to do during your day? Well, to wait an hour and a half to punch dough down. Hey, guess what? That's a great achievement. I'm going to wait.
You know what? So you've just said it, Michael. You've said it. And especially with the Maslow pyramid, you couldn't be more correct. I do know that I baked the bread and I really enjoyed it. I really went in and enjoyed it.
Yes.
They got better. I mean, a couple of times when I sliced it and saw the crumb or different things, I'd say to my husband, this is looking pretty good. You know what I mean? I didn't know how to correct my own thing because I would give it to my neighbors next door. They're dear friends. And he's so funny. He's a voiceover and he's been an actor. He'd say to me, that bread was good. He didn't care that it was too small or that, you know what I mean? Or I didn't know what I was doing. He'd say to me, that bread was good. So, but there was a great, deep personal satisfaction in making little scrawny loaves of sourdough.
Yes, yes. And you know, it nourishes, you can share in some way. It helped us have community and all of that stuff. So I think that was, you know, to me, if I had to go on the record and say, why did they have that? That's what I would say. But I think the thing that really sealed the deal is when Jake Gyllenhaal went on Stephen Colbert and brought his starter. I think that, and then everybody said, okay, I'm doing that now. So that,
you know what? You're right. Now, listen, I cannot thank you enough for your time today, for your time and your information and all your great information. Cindy will broadcast this, Michael, as she does, and we'll tell you when it's going to go up. And to our listeners, we always put all the information up on our chef or our friends that are here so that you can contact them if you need to. And Michael, you know, it's just, and hopefully they'll use their coupon to see your focaccia video. It sounds absolutely wonderful to me. And I so appreciate your time today. So if you want to reach Cindy and I, it's womenbeyond@icloud.com. Of course, a lot of people, our Facebook page, Women Beyond a Certain Age. People are sometimes shy and don't want to ask questions. So then they private message us, and that's fine too. So, Michael, thank you so much. Oh, and what's your website? Say your website for people.
Well, my website is my name. It's Michael Kalanty.
Okay.
Kalanty. No, it's not case sensitive. It's just .com. .com is my last name.
Okay. See, keeping it simple and to the point is a really, when people give me websites that say things like, she's the best mommy, or I'm a mommy blogger in the world, my eyes already roll to the back of my head. I have no idea
just give me a link then. Just send the link.
Thank you so much. I hope you have a lovely day.
Thank you, Denise.
Thank you. And thank you.
Really, it was a pleasure. Thank you for sharing your audience with me. And for having me on your show, and just really, it was great for me to reconnect with you as well. You know,
aren't we lucky? Aren't we lucky?
We are.
We are. Thank you, Miss Cindy. Cindy keeps the wheels on the train, as we say, the train on the tracks. I try to make up a new one, and she always says to me, "That was stupid." So I'm just going to say. You know, one of the things after you work together with someone for 25 years, they're pretty honest with you. So, train on the tracks. Thank you, Miss Cindy. And thank you, everyone that listens. And thank you, Chef Michael. And we were going to ask you to come back again. And you go back to Central Milling. They need to have you make some more videos. I'm telling you, I feel it. I feel it in my bones.
I'm taking your word and I'm going forward with it. So thank you again for having me.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Bye-bye.